I've posted a couple of times about my own experiences, but here are some stories from family. I did not experience all of these myself, but I have been told by many people. My Nana, my stepdad's mom, and my stepdad told me a lot of stories when I was a teenager about my Nana's house. My stepdad is an unbeliever of everything, the paranormal, afterlife, religion, etc. So when he told me these stories, I really believed him. He's never been the type to exaggerate or lie about things. My Nana lives in the back-to-back cherished housing in the outskirts of Wakefield. I don't really know how long she's been there for, but she told me about a spirit that was in her house. His name was Ned. Some small things happened in the beginning, stuff moving around and whatnot. Gordy, my step-granddad, also a non-believer, seemed to be his main target. He said he would be walking down the stairs, and a sock would hit him in the back of the head. Or one day, the wash basket knocked over behind him. He would put his towel on the rack in the bathroom, and when he got out the shower, it would be sitting right there on the other side of the floor in the bathroom. My Nana was sitting in the living room one day, watching TV. She then turned to the side and saw a figure standing right next to her. He was wearing a striped shirt with large cuffs on the wrist. My Nana ran up the garden screaming to Gordy. She said she was too scared to look at his face in case it was terrifying looking or something. Another story would be that one day when my stepbrothers and my mom was pregnant, she would sit on the sofa and the leg of her PJs would start to slowly rise up. My Nana shouted to Ned to stop. Then it dropped back down her leg. My uncle has also had an experience as well. He was on leave and had a friend staying with him at my Nana's. He let his friend sleep upstairs and he slept in the living room. In the middle of the night, he woke up to the dog flying open and the dogs, two tiny Jack Russells, came charging into the room looking unsettled. My uncle then saw a figure run back from the front door and into the pantry. He was that scared that he slept on the floor upstairs next to his friend that night. When I used to stay over, I would share a room with my stepbrother. He's a few years younger than me. He used to be terrified of Ned, and some nights we would get some really weird feelings. We would wake up hearing someone walking about in our room, or maybe even on the landing. My stepdad didn't say much about his own experiences in that house, but he did tell me that he came home from base one weekend and saw his neighbor across the road pull in on his motorbike at his usual home time from work. He waved at him and said, "Hello," and he said, "Hi back." My stepdad went inside and my Nana asked who he was talking to. When he told her the neighbor, my Nana seemed shocked. The guy had died in a motorbike accident that week, and my stepdad didn't know because he was posted a few hours away. Anyways, that was a lot longer than I expected. Just one more thing. Gordy passed away a few years ago, and the activity from Ned completely stopped. That's my story. This is not my story. It happened to my dad's best friend, R, in his youth. R had a school holiday job working as a co-conductor on a freight train. This entailed sitting up front with the train driver through the night, and basically just keeping him awake. One morning in the early hours, R and the train driver were sitting talking as usual. As their train traveled through a heavy thunderstorm, through a rural part of my country, they saw a pale man standing on the tracks ahead of them, with long dark hair that was plastered against his body in the downpour. Their train was headed straight for him and they could do nothing to avoid him. Now R says he had occasionally been on trains that had hit stray farm animals and such like, and he knew the feeling of a thud from the impact that it would cause. The train sped towards this man, and R braced himself, but they felt no impact, even though they knew they had hit the man. Along train tracks, there are concrete pillars with numbers on them to help the drivers identify their location as they travel. The train driver made a highly unorthodox unplanned to stop as soon as they passed the next station, and told R to run in and report the man they had just hit to the person in the office. R ran in and told the lady sitting there what had happened, and the number of nearest pillar to there the accident had taken place. With a very concerned look in her eyes, she simply told him, "You're the third train tonight to make an emergency stop. and report the same incident. This is to state the scariest ghost story I have heard. I also want to note that R is a high court judge in my country, and most definitely not someone to make up a story like this about. Thinking about it still gives me chills to this day. My childhood home was so ridiculously haunted that a lot of things that happened to me while growing up there seemed normal until years later. Every night, I would fall asleep listening to what sounded like conversations coming from the wall. The house would be quiet, but I could hear people talking in different tones. I could never make out what they were saying, but the sounds comforted me because I was used to hearing it. Strange, I know. My father would work night shifts, and every morning he would come home while we were still asleep. His routine would be the same. I would hear him walk up the stairs, keys jiggling, and then I would hear him unlock the door. He would then put his bag down, shut the door, walk up more stairs into the house. Most mornings, it was really my father coming home. However, some mornings I would wake to hearing him come home, but no one would be there. I would hear him do everything I listed. I would get up after hearing him and nothing. No one would be there. Then, I would go back to bed, and he would actually come home for real about an hour or two later. Before you discount this as paranormal, you should know that my dog would also hear and react to my dad's phantom home arrival. Years later, I told my mom this would happen, and she said she would also hear the same things, and realized quickly that something strange was going on. This house was very active. I have many stories I will share, but I'll leave one more here for now. I remember that I would hang out in the main level of the house, which was my grandparents' part of the house, after school, while waiting for my mom to come home from work. I always had either my cat or dog with me. Sometimes my grandma would leave the house before my mom got home, and I would stay alone with my pet and do my homework. The minute she would leave, the vibe of the house always changed. It was like whatever was there knew I was alone, and needed to let me know it was there. I would start to feel like I was being watched. I would hear shuffling sounds like an old person walking throughout the back rooms. Shuffle, shuffle. My dog or cat's ears would be up, and they would be looking around frantically. While this would be happening, I would wait it out. I would just listen to the shuffling while my fear grew. Once the shuffling would make its way to the area heading to where I was, I would bolt out of the house and sit on the outside stairs until my mother arrived home. This happened on numerous occasions. Many years later, I told my aunt this story. She looked at me with wide eyes. She used to sleep in one of the back bedrooms when she grew up there, and she said that she also heard shuffling noises. It would happen to her when she was just trying to fall asleep at night. She would hear the shuffling going throughout the back rooms just like I heard it. She would hide under her blanket in fear. She said that once, she peeked out from under the blanket and an old man was bent over her, staring at her angrily. She was terrified. Years later, when my family sold the house, my cousin who also lived at the house went back to do a project for school about where she grew up. She asked the new owners if she could take some pics, and they said sure. But first, can we talk to you about when you grew up here? This place is totally haunted. My cousin spent a long time sharing stories with the new owners. I'll share some more soon. Thanks for listening.